Got the stop option. Are we recording? There we go. Okay, so we're going to look at first just where to find Premiere. If it's not down in the bottom and says Premiere CS6, you can always go through Finder, and this is very similar to what will be in the labs, except I have a whole lot more on my computer, and Applications, and then you'll have all your Adobe stuff, and we're looking for Adobe Premiere CS6. When you double click on it, well, this opens up the folder, then your actual application's right there. Double click on it, and if you want to, you could click and drag this down to your dock so that it will be there whenever you start up if it's not there already in 138. I've already gotten there. So this is your welcome screen that's going to come up by default. Let's assume we're starting from scratch and we're making a new project. I'm going to say new project. Minimize that so it's out of the way. When you're working on those computers, you always want to put stuff in the Documents folder so that it is reserved for you. So I'm going to go to Documents, and it's right over here on the side, just like it will be over there. Documents, and I'm going to create a new folder to make sure everything stays contained. Premiere creates, just like Pro Tools did, a set of folders, but it won't pre-make this big master folder. So if you had, say, 3 or 4 Premiere sessions going on for different projects, it's going to be using all of that same subfolder hierarchy. You don't want to do that. You want each one to be independent. So I'm going to make a new folder to put this in, instead of just putting it in Documents where I may save 4 different Premiere projects. Everyone gets its own folder. So I'm going to go along with saying, and if you guys see on, actually, you don't have to ignore the sheet yet, I have a lot of these steps written down on here, so you can follow along too. On that group assignment and then sound mixing project, we've started it, we said new projects, and I'm saving it in Documents. I'm going to make a folder that says last name and TBG, because we're going to do our best gift setup today. So we'll say Selg TBG and create. There's my folder. Now I'm inside it, and I'm going to say choose to select the folder. Then down here in name, let me turn off these lights in the front so you guys can see the screen a little better. I'm going to call it the same thing, Selg TBG. All right, you have all of these different presets that you can choose from. Just like in Final Cut, Premiere now, if you chose the wrong preset and you said you had no idea what video file you were about to use, and you said that it was like a standard definition video, when you drag a video file into the sequence, it's going to ask you if you want to make the changes and change the sequence over. Just to be safe though, we're going to start with the right sequence. The right settings for what you guys are doing are under this, let's say this was collapsed, the AVC HD, 1080p, and we want 30 frames per second. I'm going to let it stay sequence 1 and say OK. So what that's going to do is create my first sequence, which is where you actually put clips. It's going to take a second to do that. Those settings may be completely different for different projects. For this project, we're going to do, it's 2997 because this is animation and that's how we're exporting it, 2997 frames per second. And we're doing our audio at 48K and 16 bits. While we could go higher and do a higher resolution, a lot of the sound effects you guys are getting are only going to be 16 bits and 48K. And some of them are going to be 44.1 and like 12 bits. I don't want to be going and mixing that 12-bit 44.1 and trying to upgrade it to like 24 bits, 96K, and mixing those all together. It's going to sound a little bit weird if we end up doing that. This gives us more leniency of doing the 16 bits and 48K. Cool? And that created all of that. Let me make this full. You can see up here your basic layout for Premiere. You've got a browser where you see all of the stuff you have stored. A viewer where you can see if you had something selected from here, a clip, you'd be able to edit that clip just like in Final Cut. And then this program connects to your sequence. Whatever is in this sequence, you'll see here. Your sequence, which is where you put all of your different clips, then effects and information. And that's your standard setup when you first start. We'll get into the audio mixing views later, but this is just your basic setup for now. One of those keys to creativity is organization. I don't feel like I can say it enough. Organize and you can be creative. A good organization system is to always have separate bins for everything you're putting in. Bin is a folder within an editing system. There are a couple ways you can create a new bin. You can click on this little folder-looking button in the browser and say New Bin. I'm going to make one for sequences, one for video clips, and one for audio clips. If I was doing a video project, I'd usually do a graphics bin too, but we're really not going to mess with graphics in this project, so I'm not going to bother. Then the first thing I'm going to do is move this sequence into the sequence bin so that it's where it should be. So I'm just going to click it, hold it down and drag it, and drop it into sequences. If I were to collapse this bin, we won't see it with it open. I see it. Make sense? I'm going to do this just...
Could you redo that one more time?
You good, Mike?
Yes.
All right. In video clips, I'm going to open up this bin. You can see the sub bin. And we're going to import in our video file. On those computers down there, the best gift video file is on the Macintosh HD. I've got a sound design folder, and it's in there. I'm just going to right-click and say import. Again, I'm not using shortcuts. In my case, it's on my desktop. A whole bunch of other stuff. So you guys know while this is importing, that file is on those hard drives at a higher resolution than it is on Dropbox, because it's about a 4 GB file at the higher resolution. Then I've got an MP4 on Dropbox for you guys to download. If you guys are downloading that from home and it's giving you trouble, sometimes MP4s play funny, you can convert it to a MOV. MPEG Stream Clip, MPEG Stream Clip is a free program that converts, and you can just convert it to .mov. As long as you keep the frame rate the same, it doesn't matter. You can convert it to whatever works well. All right, so we have our video in here. I'm going to close this so you guys can see. So under video clips, we've got the video. If I double click on this, it's opening up in my viewer. I could scroll through and see, look, there it is. Move this over. And I'm just going to click and drag and put it at the beginning on video 1 and audio 1. When I play it now, we see it in the program window. We've got our beeps, our slate, and then the project. I'm going to click this little collapse expand track arrow, and you can see those two. Let me make this even bigger. I'm going to click right between here and drag it. You see those beeps, the left and the right. Right here's the left channel, here's the right channel, and you see the two beeps for the bars and tone. I'll play that back. So you can see that waveform. Make this a little louder. I'm going to make this smaller. You can control track height and make it whatever you want. That helps you to see. And I'll collapse that down. Once you guys insert this, you're never going to move it, which is very important for us syncing all of these projects back up. It's at the very beginning of your timeline. You can click it, drag it, make sure it's all the way at the beginning, then lock it. There's this toggle track lock, that little gray open box. Click it and lock it. Those are never changing from this point forward. That way everything will stay in sync. I'm going to go ahead and save this. So that's your basic setup of this project. I'm going to pause for a second to stop this recording so that it won't be too gigantic.